Hello, hello, friends. Welcome to our next episode of Story Time. Today's story is one that I think you might be able to relate with a little bit. If you've ever felt like perhaps you've been accident prone, perhaps there have been things in your life that it just seems to bother you or hold you down and you just can't get past it. Well, I am so excited to have you join us and to get to introduce you to one of my great friends, Meg Hays. Meg is an amazing woman who really charges women to see past the things that hold them back. And for many of us, it's the things behind the curtain that we don't actually talk about. And as you hear Meg's story and her journey, and you may have read about it a little bit in Pieces to Purpose if you received a copy at Unbreakable. And if not, no problem, you can get your copy now. But I want to really give you a glimpse of Meg's life and who she is and where her story came from and how she has used her story to really discover her pieces to her purpose. So, welcome, welcome, and welcome to my friend Meg.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. I loved being part of this book, and I have loved everything that I've seen grow from it.
yeah.
And just talking to you makes my heart happy. So thank you.
Aw, it makes my heart happy too. Well, Meg and I met probably about 2 years ago. We were Facebook friends somehow. You know how that happens, right? You just become friends with somebody because of a mutual friend. And one day we were like, hey, let's grab coffee. Like, I think we had coffee.
We did
Yes,
have
we did have
coffee.
coffee. It's a
Yes.
real thing. And in that journey, we just created this wonderful friendship. We both knew that we were about empowering others. Now, the tools that we were both using at that time of empowerment are very different than the tools that we use to empower women today, which is actually super cool, right? To
Yes.
see how, different things happen in our lives and they transition and they shift us. But last year, when we had our very first Unbreakable Women's Conference, Meg was the first to say, I volunteer. I want to help and be part of that. And that led to us co authoring a book, to her being the MC at our last conference that we just finished, and an amazing, beautiful expansion of a great friendship. So, Meg, I I want to dig right in
Okay.
because her story was the first one in the book. And I've known you for a long time, but I didn't know those pieces of your story.
Yes.
And I knew that helping women specifically with nutrition and health was a big part of your life, but I didn't know why it was a big part of your life. And in fact, even the couple of years leading up to us writing this book together, I didn't know until I read your chapter. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to know you at such a deeper level. And I think that's one of the things that happens when we share our story.
Oh, for sure. And I think that for one, it excites me to think that I wasn't showing off the crazy that I always felt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does make me think, man, I need to be a little more authentic on the
Mm,
regular because I
mhm.
believe that our stories are really what help people find their own strength.
Right.
And it's not through the mountaintop experiences
Right.
that people are helped. It is truly through our pain
Right.
and through our suffering that I feel like makes us a little more relatable too.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
it does make me happy that I wasn't like having crazy written across my forehead
I
either.
remember reading that in your book and you're like, literally, I feel like it was written across. And we all have those experiences in life. And I think it's so cool. And you're absolutely right. One of the things that we talk about in Unbreakable is that our stories are literally one of two things. They are either the chains that hold us bondage to situations, or they are keys to freedom, first to ourselves and then to others, right?
Yes.
And when we unlock those stories and take a look at them from a different lens, potentially a healed lens, we can then really kind of piece it back together and say, oh, wow, I can see where that led me to this moment and how my purpose, which is always attached to people, has been fulfilled. So I want to dig into your chapter for a minute. Now we don't have to go through all the juicy pieces of it because we do want people to read it from their own eyes and their own heart and take it in that way. But the process of you writing this book really helped you solidify, I believe, the new journey that you're on, which has shifted a tiny bit, but got so specific in a new way to serve.
Absolutely. So, for those of you guys who haven't read my chapter yet, my chapter is about my journey through trauma, going into panic disorder because of that trauma, and then living through panic disorder for quite a few years because the first trauma I had was when I was 8 years old. And then, interestingly enough, I continued to have lots of different traumas that happened,
Right.
hence accident prone. But it was interesting because it wasn't even till I was 27 years old that I actually stepped into a mental health provider's office that heard me for the first time crying out for help. I'd been crying for many, many years,
Right.
but I was kind of just brushed off by the medical community, not really knowing what to do with me.
Right.
And so through that, I have, first of all, learned how to listen very well because I believe that sometimes when people are saying things loudly or maybe not very nicely, it's because they're dealing with a pain that they're not sharing
Right. Or that they haven't been heard when they tried to
when they
share.
have tried.
Yeah. I remember one of our children, she would get so frustrated as a little girl because she had the most beautiful dialect, but it was to everybody else, it was a speech impediment. And for her, she really would get frustrated to the point where she would try to tell us something over and over. And we're like, I'm sorry, can you say it again? I'm sorry, can you say it again? Finally, she would just grab our hand and say, I show you, right? And fortunately, she was determined enough that even with kind of being, I don't understand, that she was determined enough to make it happen. And wow, I think so many times that when we're not seen, we're not heard, or people don't take the initiative to listen, Meg, that's a huge gift, by the way, to be able to listen to somebody and to say, I see you. Like, I think about it, the three major things, desires, the three major desires that we have as humans is to be seen, to be valued, and to be heard. And when you listen to somebody with an open heart and an open mind, you unlock the first one, which says, I see you, which can take them to the I value you, and then I hear you.
Absolutely. And I think there was no way people were not going to see me throughout my life just because I was always very loud and obnoxious. Maybe. I don't know. That's what a few of my family members have said, but that's okay.
Survival.
Exactly. It's called the baby of the family. But I
Yeah.
will say that through the journey of going through the experiences with panic and anxiety, what I found was taking the small steps of trying this and trying that and understanding that there is no right way or wrong way to go down a path of healing.
Right. Right.
And honestly, learning that it took until I was 47 years old to really come to the epiphany that I was worthy to be heard and to, I want to say, be fixed,
Or
but
healed and whole.
healed and whole is definitely way better. But it was interesting because I had been starting on this health journey and doing a lot of different things, trying to feel better, lose weight, all the things. But the beautiful gift that I found through changing my health was that my mind cleared
Right.
and that I finally got to a point where I was able to manage my anxiety much better than I had ever been able to
Mm,
before.
mm. Let's unpack that for a minute. Because I know that, a big piece of your journey, and for the last several years, even in your health coaching that you were doing, so much of that was mindset, right? So much. So we are mind, body, spirit. We don't separate the three. When we try to separate the three, it creates confusion and it doesn't serve anything, I believe.
Right.
And as humans, I feel like we are so focused on the output. We are focused on, if I just get to this certain weight, I'm going to feel better. Or if I just achieve XYZ, if I have the life of my dreams, the family of my dreams, or whatever, I'm going to. But the truth is, it's all that internal work that we have to go through and we have to process. And as you start elevating those areas, you're absolutely right. That mental clarity can come into place, right? And you can start dreaming. You can have that creative energy. You can start seeing purpose from pain. But it takes that very specific, intentional work to make that happen. Instead of just dreaming about the output, actually internalizing it and probably getting support to help you with that.
Oh, for sure. And the biggest mindset shift I had throughout that journey was figuring out that the obstacle actually is the way.
Mm,
And the obstacles are what made me the person I am today.
yeah.
And those challenges have created character, they've created resilience,
Yeah.
they've created a human that I now can see how much is loved.
Mm,
And what I love about the whole process is that I learned how to enjoy the process,
mm,
knowing even at 52, I'm far from done. And there are ups and there are downs,
right.
but learning that every day is that gift and it's my choice how I want to look at it and what I want to do with the pieces that I might have to deal with.
Right.
But
Right.
also understanding that I am changing from the inside out, but then I'm also able to help others do the same.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that so many of us need that hand holding,
Mm,
and we were meant to be in community.
right.
And for so long, we've been told to do it on our own and you can do it and, be strong and all these things,
Right.
when truly community is where it is at.
Absolutely. And I think about, we met, of course, through the Facebook community, but then we got connected with a wonderful community in Cedar Park, which we both love. And but community gives you that place to feel safe, that place to be seen. And, I believe that there are several types of communities. There's, potentially your church community. There is a work community if you work with a group of people. There are online communities, and there are communities like the Unbreakable community, and we get to create that, right? And that is a place that you can feel free to grow, to express, to learn, to see others, right? But you spoke about something a little while ago that I think is so important when it comes to living our life's purpose and really getting to that place in life. And that was about being authentic and transparent. Right. I
Very much
feel
so.
like that is such an area. And you also mentioned a lot of the programming that we've picked up through life, programming that says, do it on your own, programming that I was, kind of thinking of when you shared your journey a little while ago, but like, we don't get help because, even like when I was a kid, if you went to the special classroom for support, there was something wrong with you. If you went to a therapist, there was something wrong with you. And it was just this stigma that you didn't do things because you were less than if you did. And like, we're of the generation that we're like, we've got a leg in both lanes. Like our kids, they're exposed to get all the help and do the things, right? But we're still kind of stuck in that, oh, do we really? Like, Where's our mindset? Where's our beliefs at associated with that from all those programming years? And so when we go back to just that key of transparency, sharing your story, being authentic to you, tell me, if you would, about how you feel like once you've started to embrace that, how you were able to reach people at a different level.
It's funny. Through just the writing process of this chapter,
Mm.
I started feeling so much more led to really tell more people about my struggle with anxiety, because it's something I've really held pretty close to the vest for several years. And even though I, of course, talked about mindset and getting people to really start questioning the soundtracks that we allow to go through our head,
Right.
writing this story really brought me back to a lot of limiting beliefs,
Mm.
a lot of shame, a lot of just childhood bewilderment
Mm.
of why is this happening to me?
Right. Right.
And it made me start thinking, who else is struggling out there?
Right.
Who else needs to hear that they are okay right where they are?
Right.
And that there are people out there that can help them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're not alone. Through writing that chapter, there was so much more healing than
Wow.
I ever expected.
Yeah.
Lots of crying, lots of
Oh.
very swollen eyes. I'm an
Yeah.
ugly crier. I am not Marlena from Days of Our Lives by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But really just finding out that there was a piece that I had not taken in consideration,
Sure.
and that was truly using my business for a different purpose than
Right.
I had even thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I was helping people lose weight,
Right.
and I really realized that I needed people to feel seen and heard and valued
Right.
and worthy of getting help
Mm.
in a world that sometimes tells us we need to
Do it on your
not
own.
do it
Yeah.
on our own and be strong.
Yeah.
Be strong.
Yeah.
You can do it, girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, no,
Well, and I
let's link
think
arms.
absolutely. And I think so many times when we try to do things on our own, even let's just say weight loss, because that is something you've had a lot of experience in your journey with helping people with weight. And I struggled with that for so many years. I struggled with trying this diet and this diet and this diet. And, they would work, like anything will work for a little while until it doesn't. And then when it didn't work, then it built more of that evidence in my mind that says, well, I guess you're never going to be healthy, or I guess it's not even worth it to try. Right. So we have all that limitation. And that's what happens when we do things on our own, or we don't get so specific with who we are and really see what's really going on behind the surface. Right. And I think that is such a big deal. And in your book, you talk about crying and stuff. And I read your chapter, and of course, I'm reading everybody's chapter and I'm loving everybody's chapter. And I'm like, wow, what a fresh set of eyes that I have when I can look at you now. And I can think of people that now you're not, and I don't want to say just, because that sounds so limiting. And I don't mean that when you say the word just, like you're not just helping people with health, which is a huge thing, right? But you're helping them overcome those barriers that get between them and the health that they desire. And that is a huge deal, because we don't realize that we've built all these walls up around us. And the thing that we desire most is typically on the other side of the wall. And your story showed us what makes up that wall for so many people. And it was limitations and anxieties around something that you really didn't know exactly what it was. Right. And I
Right.
think that that is just so profound and so beautiful. And as people read your story, they're going to start looking at their life and they're going to say, what is that wall? Like, why do I keep hitting this? What is it? As you said earlier, the obstacle is the thing, right? It is the thing that we need to conquer so that we can get to the next level, whatever that next level may be. And as I think about, the work that we do with Unbreakable and how we serve people, most of the people that we have an opportunity to work with are on their path to purpose. We all are. We're all on a journey. Now, how far we go down the journey is unique to each and every one of us based on a lot of those walls, right? Usually. But what I find for most people as I work with them is they're only about a 10-degree shift from their purpose, right? And when we look at yours, you already knew you were empowering. You already knew that that was your call, that your call was to women, your call was to this. You were literally like 10 degrees off. And now you have found it and you can rock it. And one of my favorite things that I like to tell people is when we go through this journey of healing and becoming unbreakable, is that we can go from a place of feeling like we're in imposter syndrome constantly to authentic confidence. Because once you know,
Right.
like once you peel back that layer and truly see what your purpose is, you're like, nothing else that anybody else is doing matters. I know exactly what I'm here for. And I think that's what you uncovered.
I certainly did. And I the big aha for me was the fact that not only did I figure out my purpose, which will help others, but it has helped me so much myself.
Yeah.
And that's what I love is figuring out the right questions to ask people.
Right.
And that is what I really the journey that I took taking in my own story and writing it,
Mm-hmm.
which I do want to
Please, yes.
say because I made a workbook for the Pieces to Purpose book. And the reason why is because I had so many questions that I needed to answer for myself in order to have these breakthroughs
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted to share it with others. The process was such a healing and a just very cathartic process of weeding away so many weeds that needed to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to help others do the same.
Right.
Because even, I keep thinking about doesn't matter if you're 20 or if you're 50 or if you're 80, we all have stories
Absolutely.
and we all have purpose.
Right.
And we also are on a journey. So, therefore, you may be farther, you may not be as far. But it doesn't matter because when we start asking the right questions
Mm-hmm.
and start allowing ourselves to be able to really view those experiences from a different perspective, the growth is astronomical.
Right. Right.
So
I love this workbook, and I think about it. We always have people at the end of our conferences or the end of our even our podcast here. They'll watch it and they'll say, "I want to share my story," right? Because it is so empowering, and they see this side of it and like the healed side, and it feels so good. and and then you start writing your book and you're like, oh, this is a journey, right? And so, Meg, I am so grateful. And I know all of the other authors that are in this book are grateful too. We probably wish we had it before we started writing.
Yes.
However, how cool is it? And, so if somebody is on the fence and they're thinking, well, I want to know, where my purpose is or what the stories are. This workbook could absolutely be part of your guidebook in it because it really goes through some of the things, some of the pillars, what I consider the pillars of an unbreakable life, from defining moments to our mindset and what do we think about those things. And also, when you write these things down, you talked about seeing things from a different lens. And I want to elaborate on that for a minute. Because in our traumatic moments that we go through, and yours was at 8 and mine was at 13, and I'm sure there were plenty more for both of us along those journeys, right? But when we go through a traumatic moment, The truth is that we are stuck from the lens of that viewpoint, that vantage point at that stage in our life. Meaning, when I was 13 years old and I went through a traumatic event at 13, that trauma was seen through the lens of a 13-year-old, and the effects of that trauma have still been seen through the lens of a 13-year-old until I healed it. Now I can see it from the lens of a little over 40-year-old, right? And when I have the advantage of today's viewpoint on that situation, I can be so kind to my younger self. I can see it from a different place and say, "Oh, honey, that was like no big deal. Like, we've sold houses, bought houses, started businesses, closed businesses. Like, all these things in life has happened that really puts that event into some perspective and allows you to heal at a different place. Now, I am not by any stretch of the imagination saying my trauma was, less impactful than buying or selling a house. But what I'm saying is at 13 years old, that trauma was my life. That was my viewpoint of life at 13 years old. Since then, I've had a whole lot of other viewpoints, and as have you, right?
Right.
That we can now see it from a different place and say, I see that. I felt that. I don't have to be limited to that from that lens anymore. I can be healed from it.
Absolutely, because I think the perspective that it puts every experience into
Mhm.
is every experience has different tentacles that
Right.
come into our lives.
Right.
But we now, as grown-ups, have choices. And I think that that's where that healing journey takes you through, from it being your entire life
Right.
and everything. I can only think about it, that it defines who I am.
Right.
It says my worth. We put place a lot of value on that experience.
Right.
But as we begin to journey through that healing, we now can look at it and kind of place it in the box it was meant to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes it comes out to play, and we can then look at it and say, that experience, I'm thinking about it right now. I wonder why. And we start asking those questions.
Right.
Um, and that is only because I've had years of healing and therapy and workshops, and there is a lot of growth that comes through the journey to get
Right.
to a place. So, yes,
Right.
I do understand you saying it's not that they weren't big at the time,
Right.
and you definitely don't end up at this place without a lot of hard work.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that that's where I wanted to show people that there are some really good tools and tactics that
Absolutely.
we can go through to get to where we are today, where we can smile and laugh and talk about some of these harrowing experiences without it beating us down.
Right. Right.
And it doesn't hold, it's not the cement block around our neck anymore,
Right.
throwing us into the river and taking us to the complete bottom
Mm.
in the mud
Mhm.
and mire. So,
Or hiding it and hoping nobody finds out, which, is a big deal. That was a
yes,
big piece of my journey was, maybe I didn't think about it all the time, but it was always one of those things that, if the memory came up, it was like that trigger to me to say, play small. That memory comes up, play small. That memory comes up, play small. Why? Because if that memory is there, I thought, well, maybe that's a warning. Okay, Teresa, slow down. Don't get too big. Don't do too many things because, gosh, if people find out what happened, then you're going to lose all credibility, all of, and it was just such a silly thing. But it was a real thing. It was a real fear and a real feeling that would constantly creep up. And until I dealt with it and went through the healing journey, which again, my healing journey was different than yours, but this could be a big piece of it. Like,
absolutely.
and this is like self-directed healing, right? This is an opportunity for you to, potentially read the book Pieces to Purpose and get some insight from how other people discovered their healing, what did they lean on in those challenging times? Where did their strength come from? The really cool thing about this is we became a best-selling author in like 3 different categories, from self-improvement to faith and spirituality. And I don't remember the third one, but do you remember?
Don't.
Yeah, it's okay. There were 3, trust us. Anyway, but so many great things will come out of this. And the cool thing about reading this book is that you can see through the lens of 17 different authors how their stories were so incredibly unique and different, but what their healing journey looked like. And then the next step again could be to get the workbook. We are going to tag the workbook on this video today, but you can also visit Meg's website and see all of the work that she's done. Pieces to Purpose is not the only book she's written. She is double-time best-selling author and has written a couple of children's books. And so she definitely has the ability to communicate beautifully through her words and her thoughts, and can really help you in that journey. But those are some self-directed ways that you can start that healing process. And again, with community opportunities, Meg has a beautiful online community that you can be part of. And I'll let you share and elaborate on that a little bit.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found was, especially through my health coaching, was there were 2 issues that people have the hardest time with.
Okay.
One is starting.
Ah.
And therefore, I created a Just Start course, which is an online 21-day course that I take you through, again, asking questions, figuring out what is the easiest for you to start, because we all start in different places.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is community. Who we hang out with matters when it comes to our health, our mindset, all of the things. And so
Right.
what I did was I put together an online community where I have a health coaching live every Tuesday. I also have Q&A every Thursday. And then in the meantime, we are able to gather in the community room and just support each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know, join the communities, right? And here's a thing: you don't have to do anything with it. But sometimes just being in the space around like-minded people, some of their, well, energy is contagious regardless. So you're either going to pick up the negative energy that's all over social media and the news and all of that right now, or you can put yourself in a position to pick up the positive energy, right? And
Yes.
be in that space. And you don't have to, sign up for anything or even comment. You don't have to, but just being in that space and seeing other people sometimes gives us the confidence. Again, I think about community. And when I think about the 7 pillars of an unbreakable life, it starts with self-discovery. Who am I? And you can't discover self without asking self questions. And one of the things I love about your workbook and some of the work that you do with the Just Start is that you make intentional questions. Because what happens when we ask ourselves questions, or if somebody asks you a question, immediately your brain cuts out all the noise and it goes straight to work to try to find the answer. Too many times, though, if we're not careful, we're not asking any questions. We're not even being asked questions. We're just fed a lot of noise, right? And that noise creates confusion, and confusion can create situations like the imposter syndrome or the comparison syndrome or any of those types of things that keep you so distracted that you don't actually discover who you are. And it's impossible to discover purpose if you don't know who self is, because it's always attached. All of these experiences in life lead to purpose. And then it's the people, right? So we go from
Mhm.
self-discovery to our mindset and mind shifting to beliefs to trauma and defining moments, from there to our health. Because again, until I dug into my physical health, Meg, there was, even though I had spent so much time on mindset and spirituality and really discovering who Teresa was and what my beliefs and my faith and all of that were, until I addressed the physical component, I was still walking in that comparison zone. I was still struggling with, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Because when there's that chemical imbalance with your health, when you're not honoring your body the way that your body needs and desires, you're going to be releasing chemicals and hormones and all those types of things that just keep you in a place of confusion, right? Your body just can't function fully. And you've got that brain fog and all of those types of things. So, health being 5 in the 7 pillars of an unbreakable life is pivotal. But then, right after health is community, because you can't get to purpose without community, because purpose is sometimes attached to pain, those painful moments like yours and like mine. It's sometimes attached to pleasure. Wouldn't it be nice if mine was? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
What I enjoy what I do. So sometimes it's pleasure, mostly it's pain, but always it's people. And you can't figure out your people if you don't have a community. And so community comes before purpose. And, I love the work that you're doing, starting with that self-discovery and helping people really cut out the noise and get real clear about who they are, because that's when real change can start.
Absolutely. And I love what you're doing too. And I love that I get to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I'm super grateful that you're a part of it and so thankful. Best MC ever. Like Meg had so much fun at our last conference and it is exciting. Now, I am excited about our upcoming Unbreakable Women's Conference, which is going to be on May 15th. And that is on a Thursday. It's going to be a daytime event. So make sure that you schedule that, block that time, take a long lunch, an extra long lunch because it's in Bastrop County. But that's going to be a beautiful event. And we are going to have an author panel there again. And Meg, she is going to be on our author panel. So it's going to be so fun to get to hear a little bit more about, what inspired and what kept everything going and what she learned in the process. But so that's May 15th, and so many other beautiful things are coming. And what's coming up for you, Meg, that we want to share? I know you've got a lot going on.
I do. One of the things that I am super excited about is that I am doing a solo book that will be really talking about how to manage anxiety well, because I believe that I am not the only one out there who has had to kind of figure it out and ask these questions.
Yeah.
And I just think that my story is not one that should be quiet. And I feel like it's also not one that is one of a kind. I feel like so many people deal with traumatic
Right.
experiences and they need to learn how to deal with it
Right.
and manage it and the things to actually really bring out the best in us so that we can use our lives for good.
Yeah. Something, and I know we're in wrap up mode, but something that just came to mind that I would love for you to elaborate on is a lot of times I feel like, and maybe you felt this way yourself, but people that deal with things like anxiety or panic attacks, and on the surface, everybody else looks so quote unquote normal, like they don't deal with this. So I must be broken or there must be something wrong with me. Meg, how did you deal with those types of feelings, or did you have those types of feelings?
Oh, I definitely had those types of feelings. And for the longest time, I thought I was the only one dealing with these feelings. I also thought there was nothing that was ever going to be able to help me. And I used to look around thinking, how can people walk around fearless?
Sure.
And, as a woman of faith, that broke my heart because I thought I wasn't praying hard enough or the right way, or I wasn't maybe doing the right things. Maybe I was being punished. And so for the longest time, there was such a cloud of shame that I couldn't even get out of my own way long enough to start a healing process.
Yeah.
And so knowing that there are other people out there who feel the same way, whew, breaks my heart. And that is what we're here for.
Yeah. I think a little bit about, I've been in, I mean, I have incredibly strong faith. And that is really what has sustained me through every area of life. I wonder many times, as my husband and I have gone through a lot of challenging moments in the last several years, how do people without this foundation, what sustains them? And I'm grateful that I don't have to figure that out. Like this is what sustains me. And at the same time, there are a lot of people that have dealt with some religious pain around other people's inability to have empathy and inability to see things. And so maybe they've heard something before that says something to the effect of, well, in God there is no fear, so what's wrong with you? Or um, or just pray about it. Or they've said things that seem so flippant and so insensitive to situations. And looking again from a healed perspective, that may be how it feels at that moment. It probably did the exact opposite of what we all need, which is to be seen, valued, and heard. Right. And so, Meg, how did you maintain your faith? And how did you maintain your peace and love for others in that world when you felt those types of things?
I think, first of all, even though I thought I was praying wrong and maybe doing wrong, I never stopped praying.
Good.
I never stopped praying. I never stopped opening up his word.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I never stopped singing. And that was the one thing that I will tell you. Anytime I had a panic attack in the car by myself, girlfriend would break out into song.
Good.
And that was the one thing that I always felt like cleared my mind and cleared my soul a little bit.
Now, what kind of song was it?
Oh, it was always Amazing Grace, because that's the only one I can remember the words to.
Oh my God, I have to tell you this story. So you have this amazing, beautiful nose ring. I had one. When I turned 40, I went and got my nose pierced, and it was like, I'm going to be cool. And I wanted to have my nose pierced, and my daughter was getting hers. And I really wanted my nose pierced, and it was cute until I got my microdermabrasion treatment, which I love. Mary Kay, sweet plug. There you go. Shameless. But I was getting ready. We were going to a cheer competition. And at this point, I turned 40 in the pandemic. And so we had the masks on all the time, right? So I'm like, microderm, absolutely. I've got to get all this dead skin off of me. Well, I didn't realize it when I was in the shower washing my face and doing the treatment, but the little teeny tiny 7-sided crystals of the microdermabrasion, one at least, got behind the nose ring. And I didn't realize it until the next morning. I woke up and I'm like, my nose feels weird. I'm like, it's like really swollen. Like, what's going on with this? And I get up and there's no nose ring, and my nose is like humongous. And then I was like, thank you, Jesus, that I get to wear a mask, and that's normal at this point because I can cover this bad boy at this cheer competition we're going to. So we go to Dallas, and my nose ring was in my nose. Like, it was in my nose. And here's the point to this point. When we are on our way back, I'm like, I have to go somewhere. I called my friend Monica, and she's like, Teresa, I can't really help you virtually. Okay. She's like, you really have to go to the doctor so I can do something. And so we stop at Fast Med, and there's this like 70 plus doctor that he was in the military. So he's a military doctor, and he looks at me and he's like, don't you think you're a little old for a nose ring?
No,
I'm like,
no.
I'm like, well, I'm not too old to lay in fetal position as you dig this thing out of my nose. But let me tell you, the entire time he's doing it, I am praise worshiping this song. Like, I am literally singing, like rocking it up, like, oh my God, thank you, Jesus. So worship and praise and song can get you through even a nose ring digging dug out of your, oh my God, it was horrible.
Oh, that's the worst. Oh my goodness. Okay, now I'm definitely gonna watch the
you're good.
of my face.
I was still in my first 30 days of that nose ring, so shame on me for not being more responsible with my decision. It was horrible.
Okay, that is awful.
Yeah, I think I scared about 30 people out of getting a nose ring just by sharing that story.
I
You're
can
welcome if you're
imagine.
watching. Yeah, you're welcome. Just save yourself the pain or follow the instructions of your nose ring provider. Yeah.
Exactly. Don't do anything weird with your face.
Okay, back to seriousness.
Yes.
But praise,
Praise.
song,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely.
And that was a tip, something that worked for you.
Yes.
Yes. And I think about it, I think about some of the things that, even some of our favorite worship songs that I hear now, um, talking about I don't remember the one that I love, but anyway, it's Praise You in the Storm. All of the songs about praise and gratitude. I was talking to somebody earlier today about gratitude journaling and how helpful it is that if we're, feeling a moment of depression or anxiety or those types of things, to just, reframe our thinking for a moment and try to get into a different state, whether it's a state of praise, a state of song, a state of gratitude. Anything else that you might add as we're.
Well, absolutely, because it is scientifically proven you cannot be fearful and grateful at the same time.
Yeah.
So I believe that the whole gratitude journaling, that is key to any sort of life. I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're trying to heal, just
Yes.
being in gratitude on a regular basis, I guarantee will give you so much more of a joyful life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, I have to say that one of the things that I appreciated the most about reading your chapter is that one of my children struggles with anxiety in a pretty big way. And I never understood anxiety. I never understood how debilitating it can be, how it can make you feel like you're suffocating. I remember this time that we were at the ocean. We had gone to South Padre, and it was a beautiful day, and we were out swimming, and we got into the sandbar. And the kids were out there. Sophie was probably like 5 or 6. And so Brendan and Parker were a little bit older. But anyway, they were swimming back towards Royal, and I was behind them. And in that process of swimming behind them, something happened and my foot slipped off the sandbar. And I went into the one and only at that point in my life panic attack. Like it literally paralyzed me. And I remember that moment, I could feel it right now. Right. And I remember how it felt. And it made me realize in that moment that fear and that anxiety is really, like, people don't drown because they forget how to swim. They drown because of the anxiety and the fear that just engulfs them. And I was so grateful that my husband was close enough, and he was able to support me, and I was able to get what I needed. But I think about your story, and that when I look at my daughter, I had that instant memory as I was reading your story, and specifically the choking effect, and that my daughter choked on something at one point. And I was able to put pieces together with her anxiety from a moment of a fearful moment. And now I'm like, okay, like I can see it through your story, how to support her better, even though I've never experienced that personally.
love that. And I hate that she's having to go through that, but I love that telling my story again. See, I love that I'm able to see the effect that it can have on somebody else, and just knowing that you are being so much more empathetic towards her because of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just beautiful.
Well, Meg, I know on this side of heaven, you're probably not even going to have an inkling of an idea of how empowering your story is for people. But just rest assured and know that God's going to use your story. He's going to use your experiences in your life, and He's going to help people feel that thing of being seen, valued, and heard, potentially for the first time because they've read your story. So thank you for being bold and for sharing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to my good friend, Meg, and for all of the work that she's done to really empower others and to help people feel seen, valued, and heard. If you haven't grabbed a copy of our Pieces to Purpose book, please do. You can get it from Amazon. You can reach out to me and I can send you an autographed copy. But also, We want you to download and take full advantage of
Yes.
this free workbook that Meg spent countless hours creating, cultivating to help you really put together your pieces to purpose so that you can go out and have that unbreakable life. So, God bless you, my friends. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, have a blessed day.
Thank you.